Okay, so this one, you wanted me to focus specifically on how to like play after getting invaded. So that's kind of what we'll focus on with this. I might upload this as a YouTube video on how to not get invaded, or it might just be the coaching just for you. But if I am uploading this as a video, for those who don't know, basically people pay me to coach them. This person paid me to just review their game, not like with them in the call, just separately, and wanted to focus on how to play once they get invaded. So we're going to focus specifically on that aspect of the gameplay and also see obviously what else we can learn from the game, and then we'll write notes out at the end as we always do. So first thing for me is that I prefer starting red buff, partially because it makes getting invaded on your red side way harder, because you're going to guarantee your red buff and then you're going to be able to get your Krugs right after. So even if you get invaded, it's actually not as big of a deal, because you're still going to get your red and everything, and you're going to get level 2 off that like pretty much immediately. Like I usually prefer that because it also makes getting invaded harder on your red side, because your camps will spawn at a more similar time, so you're able to get all of your camps at once, like on your second clear round. Obviously this isn't like the case specifically here because you don't get invaded right away, but that's just something to keep in mind. And so obviously here then he invades our blue buff, and the major thing to do when your blue gets invaded, if you end up like losing out on the invade, like you lose your camp or whatever, is to just not care too much about the fact that you lost one camp. Like you just go and you just farm the rest of your stuff, and it's really not the end of the world. What this also like means for us when we get invaded is that he's going to be slow on his other camps. So because he wasted his time to go to your blue side, we know that we have the pacing advantage right now. So then we can, again, if we could look back on what he did here, we can infer exactly what he's done so far. So he has his red buff, clearly, and then he has your blue buff. So it's very clear that he has not yet gone to his blue buff. Now, because you know this, you know that he's going to have to go back to his red side and probably clear something else, because he clearly is like slower on his clear than you. So you're already on your blue side, you're already clearing. He is, if you can look at his level as well, like as he takes this, you'll be able to tell how many camps he's taken. And so because he's level 2 and you're level 3, clearly you have taken one more camp than him, and you've taken 3 camps. So clearly he's taken 2 camps, right? Because of his XP, you can just tell that. And then once he smites this, obviously he's at 3 as well. And so because you know that he's only taken 2 of his own camps, that means that his Krugs or his Raptors are up, one or the other. Because of that, you're going to have the pacing advantage, and you can use this not to invade him. If you don't have prio, you don't need to invade his blue side. But what you can do is then use this pacing advantage to eventually find an invade on his red side, or to just find a quicker gank angle. So again, we see how you just go for the clear here, which I'm happy with, and then we know that he's kind of wasting time doing other things. And then we saw right here that he's going for the scuttle. So if we saw him go straight to blue side, we'd know one of his red side camps are up. And if we see him like not immediately on blue side, then we know that we're going to have a big timing advantage. And so you could go for scuttle here, that's perfectly fine. And then what I would probably do is just reset here and then start going for my red clear. Like I would clear my red, and then right after I clear my red side, I would look for his red side right after. So the problem is you look for an invade, but you should understand that he's going to be there, and then you're not really going to get much of an advantage out of this. So essentially you're waiting for your red side to respawn, which is around 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And then because he's going to be stuck on his blue side for a bit longer, you can then go towards his red side right after that, and you'll have that kind of pacing advantage again. So you should be going immediately to your red side, not to his red side like you kind of do here. So it looks like you go and look for his red side, which is what you do. And so then you find that he never actually cleared his Krugs, and you take his Krugs. Now, what we would expect was rather likely is that he had already cleared his Krugs, and then we wouldn't really have you know, like a big reason to be here. The problem with going on this angle is that you lose your red side very quickly, because now he can either invade your red side like this, or he can just like have time to make a lot of plays, and then you're missing out on your efficiency on your red side. So basically the problem with how you approach this invade angle is that you tried to get an immediate advantage by invading him back on the blue side, which let him force you out and could have potentially even resulted in your death. And then you tried to overforce an invade too quickly here, so you missed out on your own efficiency. Whereas in reality, all you lost is one blue buff, which is only 150 gold for you and doesn't really screw your game up. So you could have just gone and farmed normally, like again, what I would have done, right? Again, because we could tell on the blue buff, he'd only cleared 2 camps, so he still had 1 more red side camp to clear. So either he would go clear his blue side right away and then miss out on that red side camp because he would like not clear it for so long that he would lose out on that gold because it wouldn't respawn, so then he's only going to clear it 1 time, and then you're going to be even gold with him anyway. Or he goes for his red side, like back to the Krugs, he loses out on that pacing advantage, and then you go right back to clear your red side, clear your blue side, and then you look for the invade when you're stronger, because then you're on level 5 and you're a lot stronger. So the issue is what you did here, you know, is that you basically approached it just trying to force things too much when you didn't really need to force much on the invade. But all in all, like the result's still fine here, and then you end up just going in full clearing everything, which is fine. And then because he had a timer on you, you get invaded. But you know how you wouldn't get invaded is if you were quick on your red side, because then you'd immediately come to your blue side as it's respawning. But because you weren't able to get onto your blue side as soon as it's respawning, he ends up getting the invade, which is kind of another thing to mention, is that when you do get invaded, they get the timer on your camp, and so then he'll know exactly when it respawns. So you have to be there as soon as it's going to respawn. And so if we don't know respawn timers, I'll quickly go back and talk about respawn timers as well on the first invade. Sorry, still a little sick, so coughing a little. But if you don't know, big camps, so buffs, take 2 minutes and 30 seconds roughly to spawn, and small camps take 1 minute and 50 seconds. So if you look here, you had, you know, 1 minute and 10 seconds when he smites it. And so 2 minutes 30 seconds, that'd mean 3:40. You have to be back here by 3:40 at least, and then he's probably going to invade this. He's going to know that this got cleared by you right after, so this is going to respawn, you know, once we clear it. It's going to respawn, what, 150 we said, so around 320, 330 as well. So again, you need to be back here around 310 to 320-ish to start clearing your camps as they're going to respawn. So it's really just about, like, you know, having that pacing for that second invade. So really, when you get invaded, the main things you kind of need to keep in mind first is what's your level compared to him to understand how many camps he's cleared, which it seems like you understood because of the fact that you invaded his red side later. And then you need to understand that you don't need to overforce trying to re-invade him. You can just take advantage of the fact that he was inefficient in his pathing to get an advantage later on. You know, as we kind of spoke about. And even if you end up just not finding an advantage, it's not the end of the world. And so then that's why you get invaded here, because if we kind of look at it, right, let's see when your red side respawned. Like if we just look at the actual camps, right, you can see your red side is already spawned by 3 minutes, which means then 3:20 you would be clearing this red buff, and then by like 3:30 to 3:40 you'd be on your blue side. And so unless he like immediately invaded, you would be fine. And you can see he didn't immediately invade because we don't see him here until like he's still around here around like 4:30. Like he came very, like, you know, he was right here, right? So we can kind of tell he didn't immediately invade there. And so because of that, you end up getting invaded and dying, when in reality, if we were just more efficient with our time, we would be perfectly fine. So just not panicking when you get invaded is a really big deal as a whole. And then now you go for other objective, which I'm happy that you go for the other objective, because you see, you know, you're a little behind and you see him on red or on dragon, and then you try to invade. I don't mind looking for this. I think this is a great decision because we know that he's going to be wasting his time on the other side. And then one thing to do when you're behind with Herald early on in the game would be to play around potentially a side lane turret. So I would try to get this turret with my Herald, which is exactly what you do. And then you go for the invade on him further, which I think, you know, everything you do here is good. The only problem is this. I think this is too much, because if we're looking at the timing now, right, they just killed the dragon. Now he definitely could recall, which would take like 5 seconds, and then come here. And by that time, you're going to be cutting it really close for this invade angle on this last camp. And what you could have done instead is just gone and hit this turret, and then you would get first turret. But because you let Garen clear, I don't know if you end up getting first turret. I think you might get it anyway. But either way, like, it's a lot closer, not really is guaranteed. And it's a little risky here, as we spoke about. Now, Viego ends up going topside, so it works out fine for you, this additional greed. But you don't get that first turret, which you could have otherwise gotten. And then what you should do now, and this is where it's going to be a bit different than normal, is because you know he's spending a lot of time on topside, and he has a timer. He has a timer on your camps. You need to recall right now and immediately go clear your entire blue side to mess up with his timer, because he's no longer going to have the timer on the invade, and he's not going to be able to invade you, because here he could potentially invade you if this play worked out for him. But instead, you end up trying to force kind of an invade on him. And it kind of ends up working out decently well. Like, you get the kill, so it worked out. But a better decision for me that's more consistent and guaranteed would be to recall, go blue side, guarantee your blue side, and then you just play pretty normally from there. Now, you end up finding a great invade angle here, so I don't mind this decision, like, in terms of the result. But to me, it's very inconsistent in terms of how likely this would be to work out. But everything else I think is fine, and I don't think it's like an awful play or anything. Obviously, it ended up working out pretty well. But again, say that his gank worked out a bit better topside, then your entire blue side would end up getting invaded, and then he'd have that timer and make the game more volatile again. But at the end of the day, like, you got invaded, but you're in a pretty good spot now. Like, at this point in the game, you're fine. Main issues again with the invade were trying to overforce early and getting punished for that, and then not immediately clearing your camps as they're respawning so that he can't get a re-invade angle on you. Those are the main two things, but overall, I mean, it's still not like a bad situation to be in, all things considered, and you're outscaling him, so we're fine with that. I'm just going to skip through, obviously, the clearing, and then you try to kill him. I don't mind trying to kill this guy, obviously, if you see an angle to kill. And then what I would do, even if you don't kill him, what you do is just force the turret right after. Like, so I would just clear all the camps or all the waves and then get the turret. So your lack of focus on turrets is pretty important to mention. Because now you don't get that local gold, which obviously we definitely want that local gold there. And yeah, that's kind of the second time, right? Because you didn't get that first turret earlier with your Herald. So just keep that in mind. And then because you have a timer, I don't mind trying to go for the invade since you have your flash up. If you didn't have flash up, it's a little scary. Unfortunate that Kalista stole that. But yeah, you have a timer here, and so you can actually go and re-invade his blue side here too. Because you see him topside, so you know that he hasn't probably cleared this yet. So you can try to go look for his wolves on his blue side just because you have the timer on that, and you invaded him earlier. But you try to invade here, that's fine too. Honestly, I don't mind this decision either. Like, I think this is fine. But I would have gone for the wolves. Doesn't really matter though. Overall, again, those early game things we spoke about are the main issues with how you approach the invade, but how you played the later parts of the game is pretty solid. And the Viego is like not playing very well. He's still like he's been overforcing a lot of ganks and not really taking advantage of you properly. And so now you go invade his red side, you're completely ahead. So everything here is good. And then you just go back to your blue side, you clear your blue side to get that, immediately, and then you're kind of just having this insane pacing advantage on him. And so you can kind of see, like, another thing to mention about getting invaded is usually people who are invading are like this Viego, where they're going to constantly force plays. Because usually the people who are forcing invades really early are not consistent players. They're usually players who try to be very volatile in their decision making. And so we can see here, he just was topside, and then he came straight back to topside, looked for another gank. So you can take advantage of that, like, efficiency, or that lack of efficiency from him very, very easily, like you have been through all your invades and kind of everything. And I think you're trying to tell me that you could have just gone and farmed those camps. I think that's what you're trying to say with this, which is true that you could have just gone and farmed them, but because the dragon is about to spawn, I don't really mind forcing a fight. The problem is that you wasted your ult right before dragon. So that's where it becomes really bad, because Siobhan is so ultimate focused. If you ever waste your ultimate before dragon, that's where the real issue kind of comes in, because now you're just very weak for this fight and your team's not really in a position to follow. Now maybe you land a smite, but it's kind of 50-50 now. And obviously sucks that your team wasn't here, but like, let's say you had ult, you'd probably be chilling anyway, or at least get a kill or something out of it. But I don't hate trying to force the smite just because you don't want them to get soul. The only real issue is just wasting that kind of ult right before the dragon, but not the end of the world. And then you're still in a pretty good gold situation there. So in terms of, yeah, like the mid game was pretty fine played by you so far for the most part. Even the decisions like that I would have made slightly differently, I don't think were bad decisions by you. Like, you tried to, again, kind of invade him a bit more than you needed to when you still had camps up. And so like these kind of times you can sort of get an advantage just by farming efficiently, and then you go and invade after, because then you're not like going to lose out on something if your invade doesn't work out. Because if your invade doesn't work out and you have camps up, then you could get invaded, right? But it doesn't happen if you end up clearing first. And then you should be clearing this wave. Yeah, you should just get the wave. That's fine. The only problem with going topside right now is that there's the Baron up, but you could probably still get your topside up as long as you see that they're not really hard forcing. But I don't mind kind of sitting around here for a second. If you don't know, your first ability one-shots wards, by the way. So you can just first ability a ward. That's something to keep in mind. Maybe you already knew that, but you didn't do it there, so just pointing that out. Not the end of the world here, even. I mean, you flashed when you didn't need to flash in the fight, but it's not a huge deal. Like, that happens. This looks like a situation where we could low-key force a Baron, which is kind of like a weird... I get why you wouldn't want to do it, but if you insta-force Baron, there's no way they can contest you. Like, you're in Dragon form for a little longer, so you're going to do a bunch of damage to it. And then if we look at the health bars of everyone is half health or lower. Like, this person's half health, Garen's half health, Viego's running away half health. And Viego doesn't really have like an insane way to like close the gap and smite instantly. So you actually had a chance to force Baron here, which again, I usually tell people don't force Barons when you're in a decent spot. But as like, because I've been coaching you more, I think it's an okay decision. I think you're a little late here now. The problem is they can contest because you're late with this. And so you do it like 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds later than you should have. And now they're in a position to contest. So now it's like really flippy. Whereas say that you were really, you know, just forcing it right away, it'd be a guarantee. But you can kind of see how this small time advantage or waste of time almost led to him being able to steal it. You guys still end up being fine and getting it. So I still like that you had the idea in your mind at the end of the day. But because you went for that invade on him first, you gave them the time to reset and kind of be in a position to potentially get something out of it. Now it still worked out, and it was still a good decision by you. Just could have been a bit quicker, like we said. But I'm still happy with the decision overall for sure. And then you end up, you know, just getting this invade off. And so yeah, again, like everything that you did in the mid game for the most part was solid. And it's really just that early game. If you're trying to focus on like how to play when you get invaded, don't overforce things. It's totally fine to like go behind one camp or something. Then you have to make sure that that you get on that camp right away, so that you like the next time it respawns, you get on it right away, so that you don't get re-invaded, because that's when you can really start falling behind. And then only go for like an invade on the enemy if you see that you have a bunch of prio, or you know that like you're a lot stronger than them because maybe your champion's just better early game. But in a case like this where Viego is better than you before level 5, doesn't make a lot of sense to fight. Because Shyvana obviously really needs level 5, and then you tried to force the invade on level 4. So you just kind of have to understand these types of things. But then how you approached it later when he started overforcing more and more ganks by invading him and taking advantage of that, that was perfect. And, you know, I would do the exact same thing, so I'm happy about that. And then, yeah, this is kind of a weird situation. This Viego is very strange. You could have just ulted over, honestly. I don't like, there's no reason not to, but it's fine. You want to try to 50-50 since you have the objective, it doesn't really matter. Or since you each have a dragon, I mean, it doesn't really matter. So yeah, I don't really care that you lose this. But yeah, I would have just ulted over right away. It is what it is, though. Still works out fine. The Viego's an idiot, so. And then yeah, I mean, you should just close the game out probably. Yeah. So we'll just write notes quickly then about the main things. Again, with the focus specifically on like invades, because again, I think as a whole you play this game pretty well. Obviously, we've done a decent amount of coaching at this point. I think like a lot of the concepts we've talked about, you've kind of you've got down pretty well. So we'll just write out the notes of other things, like specifically relating to the invade. So first thing is, starting red makes it easier to not be invaded level 1. Because what people do oftentimes with a level 1 invade, when you start Krugs, they'll kill your Raptors, and then they'll try to just flip 50-50 on your red. Whereas if you clear your red, then your Krugs, all they'll get out the invade is the Raptors. That's not a huge thing. That's not the main point, because that's not what happened in that gameplay. But in like a separate situation where you get invaded level 1, oftentimes Canes do this, for example. That's how you can kind of avoid that, and that's why I start red side, or red buff, in most cases. But starting Krugs is fine because it's slightly faster on your first clear, but the problem is your second clear is slower because the red buff takes longer to respawn, and so they're not respawning in as similar of a time. Which also we kind of saw there, where you weren't immediately able to clear your red because your red wasn't respawning at the same time as your other two camps. I'll just go to the replay to kind of explain what I mean. And we look at the respawn timers of your other camps, you can see how your Krugs are already respawned and your red isn't even 30 seconds from respawning. And so then it's just a lot longer, so you can't clear these all at once, which means then you have to spend more time on the red side, so that you could get re-invaded on your blue side as you're like kind of stuck clearing these camps. That's the only thing. That's why starting red is usually better. But a lot of people start Krugs, and sometimes it's fine. Like certain champions I'll start Krugs on. For example, I start Krugs on Echo because he can clear Krugs super fast. So it also kind of depends on how much your clear speed is improved based on the fact that you start red versus Krugs. So that's kind of up to you, but that's, you know, the first small thing. Then the second thing obviously is check enemy level to see how many camps they cleared. That's not seesaw. To see how many camps they cleared to infer where they will go next. So again, how Viego cleared 2 camps, as we could tell from the fact they were, you know, a level down on us, and we'd cleared 3 camps, so obviously, you know, they would have cleared 2, meant that you knew that one of his red side camps was up, and then you could take advantage of that by just being more efficient on your clear, because he's going to have to spend time to go back to his red side. And then you use that pacing advantage. Instead of using that pacing advantage to invade him right away, you use that pacing advantage to invade him once you're actually level 5, after you get your blue side on your second clear round, because then you're going to be a lot stronger, whereas you did it when you're a lot weaker. So basically another point is do not force invade early if you are weaker early game than enemy jungle, or if your laners are weaker. Lakers, not the Lakers. It was pretty crazy though, Luka getting traded. Anyway, that's completely random. Or if your laners are weaker. So if your laners are weaker or you're weaker early game, even if you get invaded, do not overforce an invade, because it's not really going to do that much for you. It's a lot better to just give up a little bit and then again kind of take advantage of the second clear round. So if you get invaded on your first clear, use the fact that you were more efficient on your first clear to outpace him on his second, to outpace him on second clear, because again, you have more time, because naturally he had to walk all the way to your jungle to clear 1 camp, and he also has to clear that camp and then 6 camps, whereas you only have to clear 5 camps now because that one got invaded. And so he has to clear 7, you have to clear 5, and he has to walk in a weird way to do it. So because of that, you have more time to also force ganks or something, or just do whatever, or just, you know, go get the scuttle on the other side of the map, or you have that time to recall. Basically, you get more time to do other things. So even if, yes, you're going to fall behind in gold, which sucks, you can still take advantage of that in a different way, which is, you know, again, looking for ganks, looking for potentially invades on him if you are pretty strong early, or you have really strong laners early, or you can use that time to then, you know, again, the second clear round, that type of thing. So we've kind of talked a lot about like how to typically deal with invades. That's the kind of main thing that you wanted an idea of. The only other thing was when you got, when you invaded him, and then he overforced on one side of the map, you could have recalled to stop him from invading you and then taken advantage of that. Because if he did force properly, like if his gank worked out, then it could have been problematic. So I'll go back to the scenario that I'm talking about as well, just to, you know, again, like here, when you invaded all of his camps, right, yeah, like here, you could have recalled and then gotten your entire top side afterwards for free. Whereas, like, let's say that he didn't suck, right? He would have invaded you here, because he would have had a gank work out a lot better if he was just not bad at the game. Like, something would have worked out, or he would have taken advantage of this in some way, right? Instead, he doesn't do that, and, you know, works out for you. So that's just like a more consistent thing. Again, the play you did wasn't really bad here. I don't mind it, but like that's a more consistent way to not get invaded like multiple times around. I don't think there's a specific point to write about that. I'll just, you know, point that out here. Other than that, I mean, the way you played the mid game and the later parts of the game was good. Like you farmed well, you were more efficient than him, you found invade angles on him, you forced objectives, like that type of thing. So because you wanted specifically to like focus on this, and because the rest of the game was played how we would generally tell you, I'm only going to have these small amount of notes for you, because these are the main things that matter when it comes to getting invaded. And it was obviously only one game as well, so there's like just less things to talk about. But yeah, that's the main point of the video, just how to not get invaded, how to deal with invading, whatever. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If I do end up uploading it, And I'll see you guys later.